Alright folks, in my pursuit of finding a good lens for the Leica M11 series, Thypoch were kind enough to send me their recently released 21mm f1.4 in M mount. So I kind of went all over the place to put it to the test really. If you're unfamiliar with Thypoch, they're a budget-friendly lens. I say budget-friendly lens. Leica lenses are very expensive, the ones made by Leica. Voigtlander are good alternatives. Zeiss are good alternatives, but Thypoch really come at the lower end in terms of price. They're between like $700 and $800 for their prime lenses. I've got the 35-1.4 that I've already done a video on. If you want to check that out, you can. I'll link it down below. The 21 really intrigued me because it gives me something that I cannot achieve with my Leica Q3. If I want to crop in and get, a little tighter, I can do that on that 28mm lens because of the high resolution sensor, but you can't go wider on a fixed lens. And since buying the M11, I've been trying to really find its place in my photography kit. I love the camera, but I don't like waste. I don't like cameras really kind of sitting on the shelf. So it's still kind of in a probationary period, just in terms of my workflow and just making it click in my head and in my creative process. So 21mm on a rangefinder Leica M series, it's a little tricky because it essentially maxes out the rangefinder itself. It's the rangefinder. To get that whole field of view, you kind of have to put your eye in and then angle your head to the corners if you want to get that full field of view that the 21mm is going to give you. Or obviously, because it is digital, you can just use the screen to compose your images, which I don't really like doing because it kind of defeats the point of a rangefinder. I like that optical viewfinder experience. I like focusing more so with a rangefinder patch rather than focus peaking. So I will say the experience for me hasn't been the most enjoyable, but the photos are pretty impressive.
Now this video is not sponsored, but if you do wish to support me, all of these photos have been edited by my Lightroom presets, which you can find linked down below in the description. Now this lens has impressed me with its image quality, especially for a lens that comes in at around $1,000. In the grand scheme of Leica lenses, it does kind of fall into that budget side of things, so it does have its drawbacks, but all in all, I think it is a well-rounded lens, an excellent option for the price. Over the last few weeks, I really wanted to put it to the test, so I took it with me on a bunch of trips and just used that lens with my Leica M11 for all of my photography.
It has the typical Thypoch punchy contrast that I've seen in the 35 and the 28 that I've been able to use in the past. Now it does vignette very, very heavily. Even up to like 2.8, it still has a heavy vignette in the corners, which is not ideal, and Thypoch do not offer lens profile. So I've been using the Voigtlander 21mm f1.4 lens profile, which does clean it up nicely, but it's kind of a band-aid fix in my opinion. I don't really like having to do that because the vignette is quite heavy, especially wide open at f1.4, which, is to be expected on a cheaper lens, but something to take into consideration if you're thinking about buying this. A little bit more on the build quality and the design. Similarly to the updated versions we've seen on the 28 and the 35 and the 50, it doesn't have the focus lock switch anymore. It goes all the way to infinity and then it stops at 0.7, which is where the rangefinder maxes out. Now I've been loving 21mm. I love 28 and 21 has just been incredibly refreshing, especially for the type of photography that I do. With my photography and videography, I'm drawn to wider focal lengths. I like to have more stuff going on in my frame, and this lens has just allowed me to have a more dramatic field of view without getting too crazy like at 15mm. And I feel like 28 has been the sweet spot for me, but 21 has got me curious. I definitely feel that I'll be using this a lot more to tell kind of a wider story with my photography. So all in all, I think Thypoch, I recommend them to everyone. Anyone who picks up an M11 or an M10 or M series and doesn't want to break the bank on Leica glass, although Leica glass is the kind of end all be all sort of thing for these cameras. I always recommend Thypoch lenses because they're just great. Best bang for buck in my opinion. Optically, they're really good for the price. You stop down to f2. If it's an f1.4 lens, it cleans up nicely and incredibly sharp. I love the contrast that it renders. It makes editing a lot easier. And just an all-around great lens to use. I wish this one did have the like thumb grip for focusing. It just has the little indentations. So I'm gonna get one of those 3D printed ones and put it on here somewhere. But other than that, I think it's a great lens. Appreciate Thypoch for letting me use this. I'll have it all linked down below if you want to pick one up. And any questions, reach out to me in the comments or hit me up on Instagram and I'll do my best to get back to you. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video.